Let's kick it. Atlanta Soccer tonight is live on 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app. I'm Jason Longshore. This is our weekly show. We cover soccer in Atlanta. We talk a lot of Atlanta United. We're going to do that tonight. We talk a lot about soccer all over the state of Georgia, the Southeast, the United States, and beyond. We're going to hit all of that this evening on AST. A big night for the Hawks preceding us. Big win over the Lakers. Big win for Atlanta United over the weekend in the preseason opener against the Birmingham Legion. I'm going to break all of that down. You're going to hear from a lot of folks who were involved in that throughout the show. But just in case you missed it, it was a 2-1 win for Atlanta over Birmingham. Preseason game number 1. Players played 30 minutes each. So you have to be a little careful in what you take away from this match. You didn't have a number 1 group and then a number 2 group. You had kind of a 1A and a 1B, and then you definitely had a third group that was mostly academy players. We're going to talk about them as well. They were very impressive in getting the job done, closing out the win. It was the first group that played on the day that scored both of the goals. They had the best performance overall. And in case you missed it, here's what those goals sounded like. It was Yorgos Yakimakis who got things started. 20th minute.
It falls to Gregerson, who flicks to Armas. Armas then returns it to Hernandez. Hernandez sending it to the penalty spot again. Flick forward to Yakimakis. Shot! Score! Boom, Yakimakis! And Atlanta United recycles a corner kick to take the 1-0 lead in the 20th minute.
Pretty nice to get the season started with a boom Yakimakis out of Maikani. Really good flick on from Derek Williams. Really impressed with the set piece in total there. And Derek Williams flicking that on after a good ball in. Yakimakis slamming it home. And then it didn't take long for goal number 2 from the birthday boy today in Nick Firmino.
What a turn by Xande Silva, sending it down the left wing to Nick Firmino. Edge of the 18, Firmino dribbles into the box, down to the edge of the 6, Firmino, shot, score! What a goal by Nick Firmino! A player down behind the play, it's 2-0 to Atlanta United. Hopefully Silva did not pull a muscle in the build-up to that, but Firmino has given Atlanta a 2-0 lead.
Silva did not. He was clipped, and as we are accustomed to seeing when players are hit and would like a card potentially issued or are not happy with the lack of a call or just getting hit in general, players will stay down and then have that conversation with the referee. Remember, now there is a new rule in MLS, and the implementation was not handled properly in Birmingham. Silva ended up having to leave the field. He was okay, and he came back in, but he was kept off the field for somewhere around 5 minutes. It's supposed to be, I think, either 2 or 3, and it's been going back and forth a little bit as to how this is actually going to settle out. But you're also not supposed to keep the player off once that time clock is up. You're supposed to then wave them back on as you would previously before this rule was put in. When a player is injured and they leave the field and they come back, you wave them in. You don't have to wait for a dead ball situation for that to happen. So preseason for everybody involved, and these things happen. But Xande Silva was fine. Nick Firmino with a great finish, and it was 2 goals in a really quick period of time. And that did it for the first group that played 30 minutes. Let's leave it there for a second, and let's hear from Gonzalo Pineda after the match. I had a chance to talk to him in the press conference and ask about Nick Firmino's performance playing that number 10 role. Here's Gonzalo Pineda from Saturday.
I think he was very good. At times, I felt that he was attracted with the 9, but he was understanding well the pockets of the space to, again, that's part of the rotation that I was talking about. So I think he was pretty good. And the kid, I know he has goals in him, which is why I think the closest to the goal is the best position for him. We know he can play 8, 2, and be very solid because he's very good and composed on the ball. But once we are in the final third, he's a real threat inside the box, and either he can create the space for the 9s or he can create his own chances. So yeah, he did a good job today.
You're listening to Atlanta Soccer Tonight on 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app. I'm Jason Longshore. That was Gonzalo Pineda on Saturday speaking about his second goal scorer, Nick Firmino. Firmino is the depth piece at the number 10 position, but I've said it a million times, and watching him play over his time here in Atlanta, he doesn't play the 10 like Thiago Almada plays the 10. He interprets the position differently. And what Gonzalo talked about at the beginning there was, at times because he does have those goals in him, he turns into almost the second nine sometimes, the second forward. So he plays up a little bit higher. And when he's in that 10 position, he's got to stay connected to the midfielders behind him. But he also then has to find those pockets of space off of Giakoumakis and between the wide players and the number 9. And I think Nick Firmino is excellent at that. That goal was a prime example. I had a chance to talk to Nick Firmino after training today, and here's what he said about the team growing in preseason right now.
Very well. Guys are willing to be coached, willing to hear different perspectives, and because it isn't so black and white in the games. You can drop tactics any way you want, but in the game, it could be a completely different scenario. So I feel like guys are taking it well, and I feel like we're improving, especially today. We did a lot of build out the back stuff. Last week we did it, but I feel like this week was way better than last week.
The full session was open today to the media, and Nick's right. The performance was really good as they got going in terms of playing through pressure and also having the patience to attract the pressure and allow defenders to get a little closer to them, which opens up passing lanes to the sides. And it was really impressive to watch the team start to get that and make things work really well today. Whole interview with Nick Firmino, you'll be able to hear it tomorrow on Soccer Down Here, wherever you get your podcasts, also on social media at Soccer Down Here, a full SDH 1v1 with Nick Firmino. Also had to wish him a happy birthday. I mean, come on. Man turns 23 today. Also today, some other players spoke, and Tyler Wolff was one of them. Here's Tyler's thoughts. He was in the second group that played 30 minutes, so he played on the either side of halftime. Here's Tyler Wolff's reflections on the match on Saturday against Birmingham.
I think just overall the control of the game. We want to control games from front to back, playing out of the back. It's also just to work on new things that we want to bring out in the season. And again, it's early, so mistakes are happening. It's okay. You just learn. We got different groups playing together, new players, so it just takes time.
The goal that Birmingham scored was against that second group, and it was a mistake. It was a miscommunication between Dax McCarty and Jay Fortune, and it's a turnover. And then Gonzalo Pineda was frustrated that, look, the mistake happens. That's a problem. It's game one. Kind of expect those things to happen to a degree. But he wasn't happy about the intensity and trying to fix it and close it down. And Birmingham gets a shot. It takes a deflection. It gets into the back of the net. That second group had a really difficult 30 minutes to play. One, it was broken up by halftime. Two, that was during the portion of the match that looked like a monsoon had come across central Alabama. Heavy rain on an artificial surface, so it was difficult to get control of things. It was also difficult for the Atlanta group to get control in that last 15 minutes of the first half because they came in against a group in Birmingham that had rhythm because they played together for that first 30 and then stayed in. It took the second group for Atlanta United, I think, honestly, that 15 minutes to halftime to find a rhythm. When they started the second half, even, I thought the second group for Atlanta United was better. That was Josh Cohen. That was Daniel Russo, who is with Atlanta United too, playing left back. Luis Abram, Noah Cobb, Brooks Lennon across the back line. Jay Fortune, Dax McCarty in the midfield with Derek Etienne playing as a 10 in front of them. Tyler Wolff and Saba Lobjanidze on the wings and Jamal Tiare up top. Better in the second 15 for that group. The third group, academy players with a couple of exceptions. Quentin Westberg was in goal. Noble Okello, who you might remember from Toronto FC, couple of caps with the Canadian national team. 6'5" defensive midfielder, Noble Okello. He's on an Atlanta United 2 contract. Excited to see him, and hopefully he can stay healthy. That's been his issue so far in his career. really interesting project there for the twos. But outside of Westberg and outside of Okello, this was a group that a little bit of experience in the second team. Matthew Edwards is on its second team deal with Atlanta United 2, signing from the University of North Carolina, a former academy player who went to UNC, played 3 years, and is now back. Efrain Morales on a first team deal. But Dominic Chonqui, Caden Moore, Julian Bratus, Cooper Sanchez, Rocket Rita, Ashton Gordon, who we'll get to a little bit more later, and Owen Kutzos finished out that third group. I thought Cooper Sanchez was great. I thought Cooper played really well. Couple of games for him in MLS Next Pro last year. I liked his combativeness. And I think the biggest thing about this third group for Atlanta United, the youngest group of the day, they really needed to close out the result. And because the result mattered, it was important to Gonzalo Pineda and this team to win. That might sound a little weird in preseason. It wasn't just about how you play, it was about getting the final job done and creating a winning mentality. You're going to hear more from Gonzalo Pineda about that in just a bit. It was important for that third group to kind of hold on at times, be a little gritty at times, get stuck in to challenges at times. It was impressive. I thought Bretus played well. Ashton Gordon looked dangerous at times. Rocket Rita had a really good opportunity that was narrowly wide. It was a good performance from the 33 players for Atlanta United over in Birmingham. I don't think you're going to see 33 players next week on Saturday in Athens against Memphis 901, a match you can listen to here on 92.9 The Game. Coming up in 5 minutes, though, you're going to hear from Dax McCarty. He played his first match in the Atlanta United colors on Saturday. You're going to hear him with his first impressions of Atlanta United and of his new manager, Gonzalo Pineda. That's coming up next on Atlanta Soccer Tonight, live on 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app. Welcome back, Atlanta Soccer Tonight, rolling along on 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app. I'm Jason Longshore. I mentioned Dax McCarty before the break, the new veteran Atlanta United central midfielder. He made his debut for the club on Saturday. Might have set a record today after training. His media availability went almost 20 minutes. That might be a record for a post-training session media availability from a player. It was great to hear from Dax. And if you have not heard, Dax has a podcast as well, Major League Journeyman. Go look for that wherever you get your podcasts. Dax, one of the veterans of the league, one of the players who has played the most in MLS history. I think he brings a lot to the table for Atlanta United. I had the chance to ask him about his impressions of his new manager, Gonzalo Pineda, and of Atlanta United. And here's what Dax had to say.
Well, he was a defensive midfielder like myself, and so we've bonded on the veteran nature of not only myself, but even when he came to MLS and when he was in Seattle. I think he probably played a similar role for them that I might play for this team, and he just sees the game the way that I see the game. He really values possession-oriented attacking soccer, and I know that's easy to talk about. I think a lot of teams they talk about wanting to do that, but when the pressure's high and when things get hard, you can see teams revert back to not taking chances, not taking risks. And what I really enjoy about our training sessions is that he wants you to take risks and he wants you to make mistakes in training, because if you do that, you'll learn and you'll be better and you'll be able to do it at a higher level in the games. And so for me, it's a really a little bit of a high risk, high reward system to play. And if you can really hammer that home and get the right players that can execute what you see, your vision, it's not just exciting for the players, it's exciting for the fans. I mean, I think the fans, especially last year, from what I've realized from the last 6 months of watching Atlanta United play last year, I think they got used to seeing really energetic, exciting, attacking soccer, scoring goals, creating chances. And then it was just a little bit on the other end of the field where, we've got to find that balance and tighten things up. So coming into a team like that, you just hope you can contribute and continue to really enjoy the way that we're going to play.
Balance is the key. And I'm completely with Dax and Gonzalo Pineda in the way that they see the game. It's the way that I see the game. It's the way that I feel the game. We've talked about this many times over the years. Possession-oriented attacking soccer, as Dax put it. That's what Atlanta United wants to be under Gonzalo Pineda. What let them down last year at times was not that side of the game. It was mistakes. It was shipping too many goals. It was things like that. Do you want to put that under maybe a winning mentality kind of a situation? Perhaps. Gonzalo Pineda and many players have talked about this throughout preseason. This team wants to win every preseason match. And they're not doing that at the expense of that idea and that game model. And I think the best managers in the world, in my opinion, are ones who thoroughly believe in what they're doing, and they're able to convince their players of what they're doing and the reasons why. And I think you hear from Dax McCarty there. He is convinced by his manager and the way that Gonzalo Pineda wants his team to play. That's a huge part of it. The winning mentality is another component. It's separate to game model, in my opinion. I think when your game model is based on finding results at whatever cost, at all costs, I think that's hard. I think that's difficult to maintain. And honestly, I think Atlanta United fans expect more than that. It's not maybe as rigid in what they expect and what they want as Barcelona fans, in terms of Tata Martino goes to Barcelona and they win a match by multiple goals, but they had less than 50% of the ball and people wanted to run him out of town. It's maybe not quite that rigid here, but there's an expectation for goals. There's an expectation for attack. There's an expectation for excitement. There's also an expectation for winning. And the way that you start that is in preseason. And again, it's not at the expense of the way you want to play, but it is about establishing a winning mentality. Here's Gonzalo Pineda about that from Saturday after the match.
Yes, it's early stages of the season, 2 weeks. The first one was kind of a reintro, so it's basically tactically just 1 week of training. We had to suspend one session in the first week due to the weather. So yeah, happy. And the other thing is, and I told them this, of course, the performance in these friendly matches or preseason matches is important, but we're going to be a bit more paying attention to the results. We want to start winning mentality, and I told them that, and we need to start on the front foot since the very beginning. I know at times it's not easy to play against these type of teams, that they are always competitive and physical, and they have a lot of anxiety to show very well. They did a good job. Birmingham was a very good opponent, but we beat them, and that mentality needs to carry on throughout the whole preseason.
That's why it was important for the third group to get that job done on Saturday in Birmingham. And they were the kids. And the kids were given a task to go out and preserve the win. And they did. And that's just one of those little things that keeps you pushing along. Mentality in closing games out. That was something Atlanta United at times lacked last year. Not all the time, but at times there were mistakes that were made. And go back to Pineda's frustration on the goal that Birmingham scored. The lack of whether it's intensity, whether it's urgency in closing that down after the turnover, that's something that will be a focal point in 2024. And it'll be a very, very important element to the success that this team can have in 2024. And I think if you don't have that, this team will struggle at times because you're going to have some of those same issues pop up. And Atlanta United can't allow that to happen in a year where team has big expectations, and they should. When you look at this roster and you look at what this team can be in 2024, they can't make some of the mistakes that they have in the past. That just will not be acceptable with this group anymore. It's Atlanta Soccer tonight. I'm Jason Longshore. This is 92.9 The Game in the Odyssey app, and this is our weekly show, usually Tuesday nights at 10 o'clock after Hawks basketball. Sometimes we slide back just a little bit, especially after Hawks wins. Big one tonight over the Lakers. Atlanta United's next matchup is preseason Saturday in Athens at the University of Georgia Turner Soccer Complex against Memphis 901. You might remember Memphis 901. That was a team that USL Championship team. There's some Atlanta connections in that roster and in that coaching staff. That was a team that came to Kennesaw last year in the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup and defeated Atlanta United. A very, 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 very late equalizer on a penalty. Going back to bad decisions, the decision made to go to ground in a tackle that wasn't necessary at that point in the match. Penalty occurs, and then a great goal from Memphis in extra time to win it, and they advanced in the tournament. Atlanta knocked out early. That was a very frustrating night at Fifth Third Bank Stadium. When I talked to Firmino today, when I mentioned, what's coming up this weekend and kind of what's the expectations, he talked about it. There's a little bit of an edge in this one because of that Open Cup match. Now, that edge that's there, it's not going to result in somebody like Yorgos Giacomakis playing 90 minutes in this match. No, there is a plan in terms of fitness building, and you're probably looking at two groups of different 11s playing 45 minutes apiece. There could be some players that vary from that. There could be some players who might not quite be able to go 45 yet. There might be some guys working back from injury. Aiden Doris is one who did not play in Birmingham. The young homegrown, is he going to be able to go? Probably not 45 if he is. So you might have a little bit of variety there, but expecting two groups to play about 45 minutes in this one. Now, back to those Atlanta connections with this Memphis team. Two players and one manager. Let's start with Luis Fernando. You'll remember him mostly with Atlanta United 2. He did play one game with the first team, but 33 games, 2 goals, 5 assists for the Twos in 2019, 2020. 26 years old now from Sao Paulo, Brazil. He had 8 goals and 5 assists in 30 games last year for Memphis. A really good year. He's found a nice home in Memphis, as has Emerson Hyndman. Emerson's 27 years old now. He played 15 games in 2023, had 67 games here in Atlanta between 2019 and 22. And if you remember that, well, first off, if you do the math, in 4 seasons, 67 games, that's not a lot per year. And it was a real struggle for Emerson to stay healthy and to get on the field regularly. And it seems like he's starting to turn the corner in health. I know, he's a player with a ton of talent, and he's a player that when you saw him here when he was healthy, he was really a good fit for the way Atlanta United wanted to play. Unfortunately, just could not stay healthy on a regular basis and didn't start the year with Memphis last year as he was getting back to health. But 15 games for them, expecting to get more this year. And the reason, or one of the reasons why he ended up in Memphis, was Atlanta United interim manager, formerly in 2020, and Atlanta United 2 manager Stephen Glass is in charge of Memphis 901. They were knocked out of the playoffs in USL Championship in a penalty shootout. Aiden McFadden, who was on loan there last year, had a penalty off the post as the last kick for Memphis. They were knocked out of the playoffs there. They had a good cup run. They had a good season. They have a lot of new faces, and this is their first preseason match coming up on Saturday. Tickets, I believe, are sold out. That's not a big venue, and Atlanta United has a lot of season ticket holders. So I was not expecting these tickets to make it to a public sale, and they have not. Season ticket holders have claimed all of the tickets available. It's a great venue if you can find your way in. Very intimate. Good time there a couple years ago when Atlanta United faced the Georgia Revolution in a preseason friendly. Look, this one's going to be a little more competitive. You're talking about a team that's a second division team. Again, you're talking about a team that eliminated you from the Open Cup last year. Don't think that's just a nice little bullet point on the match notes. I think that's got a little more oomph in this game. I really do. And I think that's a good thing in preseason for Atlanta United. Going back to establishing that winning mentality. It's nice to have a game with little bit of a talking point, if you want to make it one, a little bit of a chip on the shoulder there for Atlanta United going into this. It's a good thing in preseason. You don't have to fake a little bit of emotion here. Get up for this game a little bit extra. That's going to be, I think, good for the players. It's going to be good for especially the younger players, and it's going to be perfect for what Pineda wants to do in creating that winning mentality within this group. That's such an important element in a preseason. Fitness, staying healthy, number one element. Number two, defining and establishing your game model and the way that you want to play. Now, you've got a lot of continuity here. You know how you want to play. These players know how you want to play. This coaching staff has been together for a good while. You can add layers to it, and maybe you can add a couple extra layers in this preseason because of that continuity. And three, you want to establish that winning mentality that every game, doesn't matter what it is, if it's preseason, if it's Leagues Cup, if it's Open Cup, if it's regular season, if it's playoffs, every game this team goes in to win it, and whatever it takes to win it. Got to put your body on the line. Put your body on the line. Got to commit a foul in the middle third as the other team's trying to get a breakaway. You commit that foul. Got to wrestle somebody down and try to make sure the referee doesn't see it. You learn to grapple. You do what you have to do to get those results. That mentality is established first on the training pitch and then in these preseason matches. Pre-game coverage on Saturday will get started here on 92.9 The Game after college basketball, right around 2 o'clock, maybe a little bit after that, with Abe Gordon and Garrett Chapman for the Five Stripes Countdown. Kickoff will be right about 3 o'clock. You can listen to the whole match on 92.9 The Game, the Odyssey app. You can also watch the stream if you want to see that at atlutd.com/live. Our commentary will be there as well. There will be a post-game show as well. Again, Abe Gordon, Garrett Chapman will take control of that. If you're making the trip over to Athens, come join us after the game at Creature Comforts in downtown. It'll be a Soccer Down Here post-game show starting at around 6 o'clock or so. had a great time in Birmingham doing that. Lots of great conversation after the match. Hopefully you can join us for that. Coming up next, final segment of AST this Tuesday. 3 local stories, 4 headlines, 3 things that make me smile about this game that I love so much. It's the 3-4-3 coming up next in 5 on 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app. Welcome back. Final segment of Atlanta Soccer tonight for January 30th. I'm Jason Longshore. Thanks for hanging out with me on 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app. Look, when we cross over into the 11 o'clock hour, it really does start to feel like Soccer Pirate Radio around here. But y'all know how we finish the show every week. It's the 3-4-3. 3 local stories, 4 headlines from around the world, 3 things that make me smile about this game that I love so much. So let's start on the local side. I teased it earlier. I said we'd talk about Ashton Gordon a little bit more. Ashton Gordon has signed an Atlanta United 2 contract. He will play in MLS Next Pro in 2024. He will become an Atlanta United first-team player on a homegrown deal effective January 1st, 2025. 2-year deal, 2 option years after that. Gordon's 16 years old right now. He joined the Atlanta United Academy in 2019. Played last season with the U17s. He was part of the U16 team the season before that won the MLS Next Cup national title in June of 2023. He had 4 goals in the playoff rounds of that tournament. He's made 4 appearances for Jamaica's U17 national team. That was all part of the 2023 CONCACAF U17 championship in Guatemala. He scored on his debut for Jamaica there. Ashton Gordon, I think if you watched the match, if you were there in Birmingham, if you watched the stream, lots of pace. He's still very raw, but he's also a player that late last year trained with the first team a decent bit in the latter stages of the regular season and in the playoffs, a little bit as an extra practice player. So the coaching staff had some different things that they could work on. He's able to almost simulate some things that the Columbus Crew might be doing in the playoffs. But Gordon impressed during that stint. I remember having the conversation with Gonzalo Pineda about how good Gordon was performing in those training sessions. Not surprised that he is now a professional player at the age of 16. First with Atlanta United 2, next year as a homegrown in Major League Soccer. Now, number 2 on the local side, another signing, Georgia State. Their all-time appearance leader for women's soccer, Ava Diaz-Lois, graduated in December. She has now signed a professional contract with Spanish club Getafe. They're in the 2nd division in the Spanish football pyramid on the women's side. They're 2nd in their section of it. It's split into 2, I think 40 teams across 2 groups of 20, split north-south. Getafe is 2nd in their group. So they are working pretty hard to get promoted to La Liga F. Big time congrats to Ava Diaz-Lois, just a warrior at center back for Georgia State. It was a pleasure to call her matches here in Atlanta, and I'll be keeping up with everything that she's up to with Getafe. And there might be some more signings out of the Georgia State program on the professional side. Stay tuned. Number 3 on the local side. A lot of people have asked, Copa America, it's coming up this summer. 2 games in Atlanta. Argentina's coming. The U.S. men's national team is coming. When are tickets going to be available? I know they're already on all the secondary sites. Those people don't actually have tickets yet. Nobody has tickets yet. They are expected to be available to the public by the end of February. That's according to what a CONMEBOL spokesperson told The Athletic today. Now, the way they'll be sold depends on the venue's deals for selling tickets. Mercedes-Benz Stadium is a Ticketmaster venue, so the Atlanta ticket should be available via Ticketmaster. You don't have to go to a separate CONMEBOL or Copa America site to get this done. It's not 100% definite on exactly when, but they should be available to the public by the end of February. We'll keep you posted here at AST. Let's get into the headlines from around the world. We're going to start number 1 with the African Cup of Nations. I've been telling you guys out there to watch this tournament because it has been highly entertaining. It has continued to be highly entertaining. Last time this tournament was played, 2021, there were 8 teams in the quarterfinals, 8 teams in every quarterfinals of every tournament. One tournament later, this one, there are completely 8 different teams in the quarterfinals than there were last time out in 2021. 16 different teams in the quarterfinals in 2 different tournaments. That's crazy. I don't have a historical marker for that. I don't know if that's ever happened in any competition that I can think of. I mean, think to NFL playoffs, NBA playoffs, you get to the final 8. How many times has it been a completely different 8 the next time the tournament's held? I can't think of one. This tournament's been crazy. The craziness continued today. South Africa, they shocked Morocco, who was one of the favorites. A 2-0 win. Morocco was a World Cup semifinalist not that long ago. They're out at the round of 16. South Africa is going to play Cape Verde on Saturday. Mali, they scored very early in the first half and very early in the second half. They beat Burkina Faso to also advance to the quarterfinals. Senegal, they're the defending champions. They are out. And the hosts, who didn't seem like an underdog coming into the tournament, turned into an underdog because they played really, really badly. They got through. They beat Senegal, Ivory Coast. That was a little controversial, though, yesterday, not going to lie. Senegal gave away a penalty really, really late. Game goes to extra time and penalties. The host won 5-4 in the shootout. Just weird stuff. Senegal's manager, Aliou Cisse, he said it was a bizarre match. Now, Senegal should have had a red card. Sadio Mane should have been sent off before halftime. Studs up challenge. Should have been sent off. Wasn't. The referee then didn't give Senegal a second half penalty when they should have given them a penalty. No question about it. The VAR, I don't know if they were watching the finale of Friends, or I don't know what they were doing, but they weren't watching this because it's clearly a penalty. They don't call it. That would have given Senegal the opportunity to go to the spot and double up the lead. They didn't get that. Ivory Coast then got the penalty late in the game after a long conversation with the video assistant referee. I guess they finished the episode of Friends. I'm not sure. Cisse, the manager of Senegal, he said there were a lot of strange incidents in the game, but there's no need to go into that. He didn't want to blame it on the referee. Senegal could have taken care of business on their own. They didn't. He absolutely could have went in on the referee because it was odd, to say the least. The hosts go through, and now when you're starting to look at who could be favored to win the African Cup of Nations, you might have to look at the host team, the Ivory Coast. I think you do have to look at Cape Verde as well. They've been really good. It would be an incredible run. South Africa, they haven't won the tournament in a long time, since the mid-90s. Ivory Coast is probably the team to watch in the African Cup of Nations. Number 2 on the headlines, another team pretty much 1 foot out the door, South Korea today. They end up beating Saudi Arabia 4-2 in a penalty shootout. So they get to the quarterfinals of the Asian Cup. Crazy game. South Korea has had an awful tournament. They're led by Jurgen Klinsmann. And if you know anything about how I felt about his time with the U.S. men's national team and some of the bad performances, you would know that I've not been surprised about some of the bad performances for South Korea in this tournament. It went down to the 99th minute today. That was not in extra time. That was in regulation time. Last minute of injury time in the second half, and Cho Gu-sung with a header. That levels the match. Saudi Arabia had 2 penalties saved by South Korean goalkeeper Jo Hwan-woo, and South Korea was perfect in their penalties. Now, their poor performances have put them into this situation, though. They're only going to have 2 days to recover from playing 120 minutes. Their quarterfinal against Australia is on Friday. Australia won the tournament back in 2015. Tomorrow, final games of the round of 16, Japan and Iran, they are favored in their matches against Bahrain and Syria, respectively. The other quarterfinals that are already set in the Asian Cup, Tajikistan will play Jordan and Qatar will play Uzbekistan. The tournament is really opening up for Australia, I think, because they're going to be favored against South Korea because of the energy levels there. And I think Japan over Iran. I would expect Japan will take care of their business here, and I would expect that they would then have that opportunity to continue moving. I think Japan's the best team left in the tournament. South Korea should be, but they have not been under Jurgen Klinsmann and in this tournament. It's Atlanta Soccer tonight. We are into the 3-4-3. I know we're on a little bit later because of the Hawks' big win over the Lakers, but we've got a couple more headlines and then 3 things that make me smile about the game that I love so much. Let's go to headline number 3. Seen a lot of managers step away. We could stretch this on to other sports as well. A lot of head coaches stepping away. Seen it with Nick Saban. Now we see it with Barcelona, Jurgen Klopp of Liverpool. Now we see it with Barcelona manager Xavi. He announced after they lost over the weekend that he would be stepping down at the end of the season. And he said today that he felt liberated by that announcement. Talked about how the pressure and the demands of the job meant that he can't enjoy it. He doesn't like what he's doing. He told reporters today in a press conference ahead of tomorrow's league match against Osasuna, he said they make you feel like you are not valued in every moment here. He said it happened to all coaches. Pep told me. Ernesto Valverde told me. As for Luis Enrique, Xavi said, I lived and saw it for myself. Pep Guardiola's talked about Barcelona, and they have a word, the entorno. It's basically the environment, and it suffocates you. It's really difficult. Xavi said it's not a good quality of life. He said it seems like you have your life at stake during every single moment, and that doesn't happen elsewhere. Pep talked about it. He said, look, you can't compare the pressure that I deal with here in England to what managers in Spain have to deal with. He said you just can't experience that unless you've lived it. You can't understand it unless you've lived it. This is a Barcelona team that won La Liga and the Spanish Super Cup last year under Xavi. They're fourth in the league now. They were probably going to sack him. It was just getting nasty, and he said, look, I'll leave. I'm out. I'm out at the end of the year. Craziness. And there's only going to be more managers and head coaches in all sports that just say, you know what, this pressure's not worth it. It's not worth it. Number 4 in the headlines, transfer window. Most European leagues, it closes this week. And here's a couple of updates. Looks like Thursday is when the last day is for most major leagues. Thiago Almada has been linked with a move potentially to Fiorentina. Journalists have talked about this. There hasn't been a whole lot of movement on it. Haven't heard anything about Atletico Madrid. Thiago had a big day tonight. He scored 2 goals and had an assist for Argentina's U23s. Maybe there's going to be more talk about Thiago Almada in the next couple days. Hasn't been a lot of talk about Gio Reyna. He still hasn't moved on from Borussia Dortmund. PSG might be looking at Marcus Rashford from Manchester United. Moise Kean was expected to go to Atletico Madrid. He is not going to due to issues around his fitness. And The Guardian reported that Timothy Weah, currently at Juventus, rejected a loan move to Everton. It's going to be a whole lot more. Lots of soccer folks are going to be talking about the transfer window in Europe. It closes on Thursday. And yeah, there's going to be some talk Atlanta United related around Thiago Almada. Quickly, the 3 things that make me smile about the game this week. Number 1, the event we had last Thursday at Topgolf Midtown, our first ever first goal event. It was a fundraiser for the Southern Crescent Soccer Foundation. Ended up raising a couple $1,000s for the SCSF and their efforts to build a mini pitch in McDonough, Georgia. Thank you so much to everybody who came out. Thank you to all the sponsors. Thank you to everybody who just shared the event. A lot of people ended up making donations when they couldn't make it out on the night. Thank you. This is something we're going to do every year to kick off our soccer coverage here on 92.9 The Game, but also to use the power of soccer for good in the community. Number 2, just the fact that the 2024 season's officially underway. We had a game to talk about tonight. It's fun with silly season and rumors and contracts and transfers. All that stuff's fun. I like talking about games. I like talking about the way a team plays. I like talking about performances that surprise you, like Cooper Sanchez coming out of the academy at 15 years old and playing really well. So happy to see a team on the field on Saturday and a good performance on Saturday and a good number of fans who came out. Almost 8,000 people in Birmingham when part of the game looked like it was played in a monsoon. Number 3, specifically the performances of the kids on Saturday in Birmingham. The academy for Atlanta United is strong. Dax McCarty talked about it today. Really impressed with the level of quality and the level of maturity from these young players who've been part of Atlanta United's preseason so far. You're going to see more homegrowns. You're going to see more talent. Atlanta United's academy gets a lot of credit for that, but it's also all about all the different clubs around the Atlanta area that are developing those kids at the youngest of ages. Really impressive work all the way around, and it's only going to grow from here. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight. AST back next Tuesday at 10 o'clock, but don't forget Saturday, around 2 o'clock pregame coverage, about 3 o'clock kickoff, Atlanta United and Memphis preseason soccer here on 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app. Adios, everybody.